Thank you for the invitation to come back to Oceanside. It's great to be here. And you know, many of you, I'm sure, have a favorite time of the year. And that is, you know, maybe it's the holidays, maybe it's fall colors, maybe it's, for the pyros in the audience, it's 4th of July, which in my neighborhood starts about the third week of June. For me, it's the month of May, because this is National Travel and Tourism Month, a time of the year where we as an industry get to celebrate the amazing impact that we have on people's lives, as well as the impact we have on our economy and quality of life in our communities. And it's a chance for me to get out and talk to audiences like you all over the country. Last week I was in Green Bay. Last night I was actually speaking in Big Bear, and they invite you to come on up. Tomorrow I'll be in Norman, Oklahoma, and I will invite them to come here. So that's how it goes. Like we just play it forward wherever we go. But it's great to be here, and thanks again for the invitation. Purposeful play, I love that concept. When Leslie shared that theme, it is exactly what it is we do. But let's take a step backwards to what it is we really do. And let's take it all the way back to the very first urban destination marketing organization. That was in Detroit, Michigan in 1896, just as the automobile was making its first appearance on the roadways, if you will, of America. But it wasn't all happening in Detroit. There was auto manufacturing operations scattered all over the eastern half of the country. But the people in Detroit really wanted to consolidate. They really thought they had something going there, and they felt that they were going to be the Motor City before they called it the Motor City. But how to tell the rest of the world, how to tell all the money, which was out east, that there's opportunity here in Detroit? There was no national media. There was no USA Today. There was no broadcast at the time. How do you get the word out? So interestingly, a number of business people got together over drinks one night and were trying to figure out this conundrum. And one of them came up with the idea, says, hey, there are national conventions, then called congresses, that move all over the country. Why don't we convince the meeting planners to bring the congresses to Detroit? Because nobody's going to come to Detroit on their own. We know that. But if the National Congress is here, they'll have to come. And when they get here, they'll say, whoa, look at the opportunity, and they will move here and they will invest here, which is exactly what happened. The very first destination marketing organization in this country was not based on hotel room nights. It was not based on tourism attractions. It was based firmly on economic development and investment, which is why we say today, it's more than heads and beds. And I know that, you know, it's one of those terms that I think we in the tourism industry need to get past. It's cute to say, it's easy, it rolls off the tongue, it's a nice little rhyme, but it minimizes who and what we do and what we are. If you think about it, heads and beds is not the prime directive. Heads and beds is the prime result. We need to fill our hotel rooms because those are the people who come to town and spend the most money. Day trippers are wonderful, but I want you to spend the night, maybe 2, maybe 3, because those are the people who spend the most money. They are the high-value consumer. The former director of the Illinois Bureau of Tourism a number of years ago famously stopped all marketing of their state parks. People were aghast. And she says, these are not the high-value consumer. She goes, they bring their own beds, they bring their own bait, and they bring their own beer. Our job is to get people to spend money. She goes, I'm going to make sure that we're making $300 a night rooms in Chicago our primary mission, because those are the high-value consumer. So it's more than heads and beds, because we know it's also cheeks and seats, right? I got my own rhymes. It's also torsos through turnstiles. It's feet on the streets at our festivals. It's fans in the stands, hopefully, and it's more in the store. All of these things combine into what we are in the tourism economy here in Oceanside and across the nation as well. It's also about jobs. And you just saw the numbers. We tout the jobs. And you know, the unfortunate thing is I think that tourism and hospitality jobs, and you know this, you hear this, are often stigmatized as being in some way not worthy. And that is a sensationally elitist point of view for anyone to have. yeah, we tend to start our people out at minimum wage. But anybody who stays in the tourism industry moves to management faster than any other sector in the country. And it's been shown that about half of the people in tourism that have made it a career are making 25% more than people who didn't have their first job in hospitality. Those hospitality jobs that many of us started with and our kids are hopefully starting in, those are the jobs that position us for any kind of work, whether we stay in hospitality or we go off to design the next Mars rover. People who start in hospitality are generally more successful in life. And so when anybody pushes back and says, yeah, that's Mac jobs, low pay, no benefit, push right back, because every job is an important job to someone. And we need to make sure that we take that message forward. Tourism is also about taxes. And, you know, we've done a pretty good job of talking about sales tax, hotel room tax. As an industry, we have done a lousy job of talking about property tax. But think about it. The businesses that many of us run and work in sit on a piece of land that is taxed. If our business is more successful, then that land is worth more, ergo it gets taxed higher. What happens if all the hotels drop 15% occupancy? Obviously, that hotel is not as profitable as it was last year, and obviously that land is not nearly worth what it used to be, which means the taxes will go down. That faces government with an interesting conundrum. They can either cut services, which we don't want, or raise taxes, which we don't want. There was a study done recently in Pensacola, Florida, that indicated that 40% of the downtown tax base came from hotels. 40%. If those hotels aren't thriving, what happens? Government suffers, and then so do we. So it is about taxes, but I think we have to be smarter about how we communicate that to the broader world. Clearly, tourism breaks down walls, and that's the softer part of what we do, but I think probably the most important thing we do is breaking down walls between cultures, between people, between political parties, between factions, between us versus them. There's that famous Mark Twain quote that tourism is fatal to bigotry. Yeah, it is. And so we have a higher calling when we are in tourism to do just that. But in the end, what we really see is tourism at its core is economic development. And we've been saying this for a while, and we didn't really have anything to back it up with, but we do today. There's a study that came out about 2 years ago from Longwoods International, one of the most trusted tourism-related research firms in North America. And they set out to see if they could prove that premise. Does what we do actually move the needle for economic development? So they did a nationwide study, 18,000 people. Now these 18,000 people, the filter was you could not have ever visited one of 10 selected destinations. That was it. They couldn't have firsthand knowledge of the destinations that they were going to be asked to rank. And then they were asked a couple of interesting questions. So the first one, and I just selected 4 of the 10 because it's easier to see on the screen. But they said, do you strongly agree this would be a good place to live? So my home state of Wisconsin, just under a third of Americans that have never been to Wisconsin said, yeah, sounds like a nice place, which means 70% don't think it's a nice place. That's a problem. Showed these 18,000 people a 30-second tourism ad. The numbers all go up by 10 to 15% in every single state. Then they asked another question. They asked, do you strongly agree this would be a good place to go to college, go to school? There's your starter numbers. After the 30-second tourism ad, up 10 to 15% across the board. And here's the most important one. Do you strongly agree this would be a good place to start a business? You know what's going to happen. Showed them a 30-second tourism ad, and the numbers go up. And they go up 10 to 15% across the board. Which is why we say tourism is the first date for economic development. We're the ones that open the door. We're the ones that pave the road. We're the ones that make the slog so much easier for our professional economic development people to get the phone to actually be answered when they call. And all from a cute little 30-second tourism ad. Tourism is the first date for economic development. And you know something, the economic development pros, they know it. This is Jeff Mailhorn. Up until recently, he was the head of the economic development unit in Chicago. He's currently leading Chicago's effort to land Amazon, the new headquarters. And he said, every tourist that comes through here in Chicago is a potential business lead. And Steve Moore from Phoenix says pretty much the same thing. Steve says, our EDO doesn't have to travel because the low-hanging fruit is already coming here for our events. So they know that this is happening. And in fact, even better than that, they, have you seen the Pure Michigan TV ads? Yeah, I mean, almost everybody has. I mean, probably the most evocative TV campaign in history, voiced by Tim Allen. Everybody gives Tim a lot of credit. He does have a very, very amazing voice for the product, but it really is the copywriters. My favorite was in the very first year. It was a spot that was designed to showcase the eastern side, the sunrise side of Michigan, where there's not a lot going on. I mean, there's Detroit, but I mean, up the coast, it's very small towns. It's very quaint. And he says in that great voice of his, he says, we humans are given 25,000 sunrises, give or take. Don't you think some of them should be pure Michigan? Right? Those. The economic development czar confirmed a couple of years ago that every time those spots run on national cable, calls to his office spike. Tourism is economic development. One of our favorite thought leaders in the industry is Maura Geist. She was former chair of our international association. And on her signature, on her emails, she says this, cash in hand economic development delivered immediately by visitor spending. That's exactly what it is. Low barrier to entry, and we are welcoming the world to Oceanside. She also said this once, and this has become mantra for many of us. We call it the circle of life in destination marketing. And she says, if you build a place where people want to visit, you're going to build a place where people want to live. Build a place where people want to live, you're going to build a place where people have to work. Build a place where people want to work, you're going to build a place where business wants to be. And if you build a place where business wants to be, you're back to building a place where people want to visit to see the new stuff. It all starts with the visit. And that visit is exactly what Visit Oceanside is all about. It's also about young professionals. And this is something that I think that we really need to focus on because, you know, millennials get, you know, a terrible rap for, you know, being one and done when they visit places. You know, it's checking off the bucket list. It's you know, they're not brand loyal. And so what's the point, right? Well, it's a huge point. And here's what it is. News research coming out of CEO for Cities has indicated that this most mobile of all generations is not mobile after they hit about 32 or 33 years old. That they actually are very much like their parents. They're just 5 years late. They're experiencing, my 28-year-old daughter is on her 4th city. I'm sure she'll hit 5 before she's 32, and one of those 5 will be where she settles down. She doesn't know it, she's test driving. Because young professionals, that's what they do. They're test driving, and so I have a question for you. If they've never been to Oceanside, what do you think the chances are that we'll be on their list for consideration? Unless they're following somebody else to town, we're not going to land them, which makes it imperative that we focus at least some of our resources, all of us, on the millennial generation, young professionals, and Generation Z to come behind. It's the biggest number of people on the planet, and we need them to come and join us here. And that's how communities are sustainable. This is about long-range sustainability for our community, beyond heads and beds and cheeks and seats and torsos through turnstiles. I saw an interesting article the other day, maybe you did too if you get eMarketer, and the headline said, millennials spend more on clothing than any other generation. I'll let that sink in for a second. There's more of them than any other generation. So, duh. Anyway. But young professionals needs to be a target. The rules of the game, though, for destination marketers, and for you, don't apply anymore, right? And part of this comes down to, obviously the internet has changed so much of our lives, but how do you respond to some of this stuff is really our next challenge. There we go. Because it used to be that we were out there with our lists and our pictures and our websites and our visitor guides, and we told about all the things there are to see and do in Oceanside. Well, one of our sponsors does that pretty well and possibly better than we do, and that would be TripAdvisor and Yelp and Google. And so many other sources online are marketing our destination too with a lot more bandwidth than we have or can afford. So I believe a smart marketer, a smart business person, looks at a situation, looks at a battle that they cannot possibly win, and say, well, A, we're going to partner up, but B, what can we do that no one else does? How do we become outstanding in our field? And what that is we become storytellers. Just as the Native Americans passed down culture, heritage, knowledge from generation to generation and made it almost an art form unto itself, that's what we do. We can tell the story. We can connect the dots. Google and TripAdvisor and Yelp, much as we love them and much as we rely on them, can't do that yet. We can. And so destination marketing organizations are increasingly about content, about curating content, tons of content, the stories that are evocative, that make you just, I've got to experience Oceanside, right? That's what we do. And, part of this is, your growth has been, can we say, organic, and we need to be a bit more mindful of how we connect the dots and how we create those stories. Funny story about this one. This is a farm stand in Fairfield, Iowa. Anybody familiar with Fairfield? Yeah, fascinating community. It was so interesting. We were there on an assignment, and I don't know if they didn't tell us on purpose or if we just missed it in our preliminary research, but my partner and I were just startled that none of the restaurants opened for breakfast until after 8. Isn't that a little late? And none of the restaurants opened for dinner until after 6. And finally we figured it out. Town's about 10,000 people. Roughly half of them are followers of the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi and are transcendental meditators. And they all gather on campus in this big domed building, thousands of them, every day at 7:30 and 4:30 to meditate together, believing that their meditation will meet in the middle and go out the dome, and it will be a force for world peace. Hasn't happened yet. I'm still hopeful. But anyway, the funny thing is, so I meet this guy at the farm stand in Fairfield on a Saturday afternoon, and I asked him, I said, outside of this being just a hilarious picture, and thank you for letting me take it and not charging me for it, I said, tell me how this whole thing came about. He says, he goes, honestly, I just wanted to have some fun and, be silly. And he says, I used to throw away the ugly carrots because they wouldn't sell. He goes, I'd have them in the bin, and people would pick around them. And I'd just take them home and throw them away. He goes, when I started marketing them like this, he says, I sell out of the ugly ones first. And I have more ugly ones than nice ones. He goes, I'm making more money on the ugly ones than I ever made on the nice ones. And he goes, it's become who I am. I'm the ugly carrot guy. So that's what you do. If you can't win with good-looking carrots, then go ahead and do your ugly carrots. And so what this says to me, honestly, is what we have become in destination marketing is storytellers and choreographers. Okay? We connect dots. We see an amazing experience that may not be able to be a magnet on its own, but if we can connect it with a couple other things, now we have a culture. Now we have meaning to this experience, and we can communicate it through our storytelling. So with that, let me give you a couple of my favorite examples of how this choreography actually works. This is a shot from a business in Columbus, Ohio. And the story goes that an entrepreneur decided that he was going to create a business where people could come in and make their own candles. Now, if anybody who makes your own candles, I mean no disrespect, but I'm in Columbus for a couple of days. I don't even know how long it takes, but I'm betting it takes a couple hours at least. I'm not sure that's what I'm going to do, is sit in a room and make a candle. I mean, I know I could pick my color and my scent and my medium. Just doesn't trip my trigger. Well, truth be told, it wasn't tripping anybody's triggers. So he'd been in business for 6-8 months, and he called his destination marketing organization, Experience Columbus. He says, you guys, can you give me some social love this weekend? He goes, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to make payroll. He goes, I'm hanging on by my fingernails right here. And in true choreography style, Experience Columbus said, have you talked with the guy a couple doors down from you that has the wine tasting room? And he goes, there's a wine tasting room on my block? I mean, you know, those of us that have started businesses, you know, we're like this. The two of them got together. They just opened their 4th location. Because I'm not about to make a candle, but make a candle with a flight of wines, you betcha, I'm there. That's what I mean about choreography. You put two things that weren't doing very well on their own, but now you've got something that is totally unique. And the Candle Lab is exactly that. One of my other favorites is Bottle Rocket. It's a wine shop in New York City. Now, there are, who knows, 1,000 wine shops in New York City. This wine shop almost always is ranked 1, 2, or 3 in every reader poll in the city. From The Voice to The Times, when they do polls on best wine shop in the city, Bottle Rocket is always in the top tier. Why? Best wine? No. Most knowledgeable staff? No. See this picture? Hazard a guess why? They figured out something that most wine shops haven't figured, and that is, outside of buying wine to get a buzz on, most of us are in a wine shop looking for wine to pair with food, or at least we want to attempt to do that. And they saw a study that said that only 22% of Americans think they can pair wine and food, which means the majority of their audience, 78%, have no freaking idea. So they do it for you. So here are great wines for Mexican food, great wines for barbecue, great wines for poultry and chicken. They've even got a kiosk over there for gifts. Because, you know, sometimes you just got to buy a gift. A bottle of wine is a great gift. And so on one side it says gifts for the boss. On one side it says gifts for dinner parties. And my favorite is the third side of the kiosk that said gifts for third date. There's a lot of wine shops. These make it easier to do something that most of us have no idea how to do. I'll let this one sink in for a second. The story here really is one of my absolute favorites. So unfortunately, the business does not still reside in this place. This is in Gulf Shores, Alabama, the Knife and Christmas Outlet. I will guarantee you that if you've, I think it closed down about 5 years ago, that if you were in Gulf Shores, Alabama in the last decade, you did two things. You went to the Floribama, one of the greatest honky-tonk bars in the world, and you took a picture of this. I'm across the street taking this picture, and there's two people next to me taking the same picture. Now, I normally don't put knives and Christmas in the same sentence, but it works well for them, or it did, and the story behind it is fascinating. The guy who started this started it out as a Christmas outlet. One of the very first in the state, probably. I mean, this was 20-some years ago. When, you know, it was a big deal. And he watched his customers closely. And he realized that when it was girlfriend weekend time and the girls were in the shop, they stayed longer and bought more than women who came in with their husbands or boyfriends. Because guys, what do? Each sigh getting progressively louder. And he realized that when they came in as couples, they spent about 30% less time and 50% less money. So he says, I got to give the guys something to do. They're killing me. So he happened to be a knife collector, and he had a great collection. And he put it behind glass in one corner of the building. And true to form, all the guys went over and, wow, those are great. Look at those. And their partner was free to shop to her heart's content. Well, pretty soon, guys were coming up to him and saying, hey, are those for sale? And he goes, no, it's my personal collection. Oh, bummer. So pretty soon he got a collection to sell. Pretty soon it was half the store. Pretty soon it was 75% of the store. He's recently relocated to Foley, which is about 15, 20 miles north of Gulf Shores. And it's an all-knives store now. It's called St. Nick's Knives. Right? And his name is Nick. But a wonderful pivot for somebody who saw an issue, saw a problem, needed to solve it, solved it, and then realized that actually he wasn't in the Christmas business, he was in the knife business. So to a degree, he cannibalized himself, right? That's exactly what Steve Jobs did. He cannibalized the iPod. He knew that the iPhone would kill the iPod, and what was it, last year or the year before, they ceased manufacturing iPods altogether. If you have one, it's now a collector's item. I'm not sure you're going to get anything for it, unless it's in the original packaging. But he cannibalized his own product. And when asked about that, he says, better that I did it than my competitors. True that. So cannibalization sometimes is not the best. Sometimes it's just a unique take on a traditional product or service that you have. Pizza, right? Pizza. This is kangaroo and crocodile pizza. Actually, it's pretty good. Tastes like chicken. Just kidding. Sometimes it's a smarter greeting. This is a story that Roger Dow with the U.S. Travel Association has told for a number of years. I don't know if he's still telling it, but he formerly worked for Marriott. And I'm pretty sure this was at the Westin in Chicago. So, and you know, today, this is easy because we have technology. I mean, if you don't know in a lodging setting that somebody is a repeat visitor, I mean, that's on you. I mean, you ought to have them in your database. You ought to be able to flag that so when somebody comes in to check in, that the person behind the desk can say, welcome back. Before computers, before technology, before databases were available to frontline staff, that was the greeting that happened at the Westin. What would happen is, so I would fly into O'Hare. I'd be picked up by the shuttle, shuttled into my hotel. I would walk in, and she'd say, name, please? Geist. Welcome back, Mr. Geist. So nice to see you. Okay, I haven't been to this Westin like in 8 or 9 years, and you're 23, if you're a day. How do you know? This is before databases. How do you know that? Simple. The driver on the way in said, first time to Chicago? No, come here all the time. First time to the Westin? No, I was here a few years ago. And as I walk up to the front desk, he's behind me with my bag, and he does one simple thing. Tugs on his ear, which is a signal to her to say, he's been here before. No tug? Welcome to the Westin. A tug? Welcome back, Mr. Geist. If they could do it then, with no technology, we should be able to do it more effectively now because everybody loves to be noticed and remembered, even though it's obviously, in this case, there's no way that she should have remembered me or I should have been in jail. One of the things that we really need to work on, I think, throughout the communities, and you are so blessed with a facility like the Star. This is fabulous, and really enjoyed being backstage with owners and crew. But the nighttime economy is crucial to any urban destination because you really need a reason for people not to get back in their cars after dinner. There's a couple things going on here. So one is you live so close to major metropolitan areas where I'm sure a lot of your customers come from. It's not that hard for them to hop in the car and go home. Nighttime economy encourages them to stay. research, and it's played out for 10 straight years. There's a firm out of San Francisco that does research for the destination marketing industry. And they asked the question, do you go out after dinner? Do you go out for music, drinking, plays, drama, comedy, something? Do you do entertainment after dinner? Care to guess how many of us go out afterwards? 20%? Very good. 1 in 5? Are we that boring? And hey, I get it. I come from the binge drinking capital of America, but still, 1 in 5? I am convinced it's not because we're racing back to watch HBO, because we all have that at home now. I mean, that was a deal years ago. I'm aging myself. But, I mean, you'd stay in because they had better cable than you did. Why? I'm convinced it's because they don't know where to go. I think we have the nighttime entertainment in our communities. You do. It's just we've got to find a better way to communicate that to a visitor, especially a first-time visitor or a second-time visitor that hasn't figured out the lay of the land yet and knows that that's where you're going to find somebody like the mayor performing, or this is where you're going to find some drama. We've got to work on that, honestly, because that is the key to getting people to stay the night, spend more, and then go back and tell all their friends about the great time that they had. And one other thing that we really have to focus on, and that is making sure that we keep this community beautiful. And beautification is an easy thing to say, yeah, that's a great idea. This is a billboard for a hotel that no longer exists, just outside of a little town called Olean, New York. What a wonderful welcome to Olean. And even better, you get about a mile or two into town, and there is this beautiful stone marquee that says, you know, what is it called? The DeSoto Motel. And that's all that's on that piece of land. I mean, it looks like there might have been a pool there, and I'm guessing the hotel was back there, but they're both gone. They've been gone for years. No one has thought to take this sign down. And it's not the responsibility of the DeSoto. Honestly, it's the responsibility of the destination. Because this is the welcome that I'm getting to a community that actually has one of the most beautiful campuses in the country. St. Bonaventure University is located just outside of Olean. This is important, and I was fascinated. Did some work recently in Tallahassee, Florida, home of Florida State University. And I sat down and I was talking with some of the leadership of the university. And they said, we are investing, I think he said $20 million to beautify the entryway from the airport to campus. Because the airport to campus is probably some of the most depressed housing stock in all of Tallahassee. They go, this is impeding our enrollment. Mom and dad bring their child to visit the campus. They fly in and they drive through that, and we're right next to that. We've heard from some parents, they didn't even make the appointment. They turned around and went right back to the airport. If a university understands that it's to their best interest and their bottom line for beautification, I think it says it for all of us. Because universities, with all due respect, can really exist in their little bubble. And they realize at Florida State that they can't exist in that little bubble any longer. So my encouragement to you, you've got a beautiful plant here. I mean, it's so much fun to come back. But that first impression, you know the line. You only get one chance to make a first impression. Those first impressions are almost everything to inspire a return visit and inspire what we all do, which is we all get on social media and we tell all of our friends, whether we had a great experience or whether our experience was just, so-so. So to close, that really is what we all need to focus on every day of our lives. From a destination marketing organization like Visit Oceanside to all of us in our everyday businesses is how can we be outstanding in our field? What can we do that's a little bit different? What can we do that no one else can do? How can we take a product that is getting tired and give it a tweak? What are those hidden moments, those gems that with a little bit of thought, each one of us has the ability to do with our business, with this destination, and with the region as a whole? And with that, I just want to say thank you so much for the opportunity to join you on National Tourism Month. I coined that phrase. Actually, there's a National Tourism Week, but nobody knows what week that is. So I just say the whole month of May is National Tourism Week. So celebrate what you all do in this industry and throughout this region is vitally important to our way of life, our quality of life, to smart growth, to making sure that what we do isn't just a copy of somebody else, that we are known for being innovative and putting that customer first every single time. So I wish you all the best for a great summer season. Thanks again for the opportunity to join you. Here's my contact information. Let's stay in touch. Thank you so much. Thank you.